let's go back over here. Okay. You finished Rain Code, and we have Diablo 4. I'm guessing our Diablo 4 discussion will be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Why don't you chat about Rain Code?
Let's do Rain Code first, because I don't think it'll be very long, because obviously you're not playing in it. And yeah. So Rain Code is the new, like, quote unquote Danganronpa game that's not a Danganronpa game, but it's from the same people.
Hmm?
Here's what I have to say about it.
Uh-oh.
I like the game. Like,
Okay.
overall, I like the game. I think it's good. It scratches the same itch for the most part that Danganronpa does,
Yep.
other than the kind of, like, the things that it does not do as well as Danganronpa. The sort of, like, build up and suspense of the murders and, like, each mystery. Because Danganronpa, you're in this closed system with these 16 characters or whatever, and you know every chapter, at least one of them is going to die, and another one of them is going to be the killer. So it's, like, very suspenseful, building up to when the murder is going to happen, and then the investigation, and then the trial.
Yep.
So that is kind of missing. The pacing of this game, however, is good. Like, Danganronpa V3, the third game, for me, there was, like, way too much downtime in between each mystery, and they just wasted a lot of time on just, like, mindless BS. And it was just like, get to the point already. Let's do this thing. So this game is paced much better. They have side quests in the game, which are kind of pointless, but they add a little bit of world building, and they're not so short. They wouldn't be as, and there's only like 4 per chapter, so there's not very many. They would be a little less painful to do if this game wasn't on the Switch, but since this game is on the Switch, it has quite long loading times for so when you're fast traveling between the different, like, zones of the city to complete the side quests, there's quite a lot of loading times.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Switch. It is what it is.
Again, as a Switch game, it doesn't perform. The game's performance isn't that great. You know, it's not a super, like, pace action game or anything, so it doesn't really affect it in the long run, because
Sure.
most of the game is just dialogue and text, so
Sure.
it doesn't really matter, but it's noticeable in places.
Yep.
And I think overall, I like the mysteries better in Danganronpa. They were just, like, and the game, like, Danganronpa, the game was, like, more difficult. This game was, like, really easy for the most part.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the mysteries I had kind of figured out, you know, before we even got to the mystery labyrinth where you unravel the whole thing, basically. And I didn't feel like that happened very much for me in Danganronpa, so the mysteries, like, weren't quite as intricate or interesting, but it still scratched the same itch. The one thing I will say is, I don't particularly care for the story, the overarching plot of Danganronpa, and I'm not gonna tell you it's the best story I've ever heard, but I much preferred the main story of this game as opposed to Danganronpa, especially Danganronpa V3, which, like, the last chapter of that, where they actually get into the main story, literally completely, like, destroyed the lore of that entire series. I
Oh.
won't spoil that here, but it was one of the worst plot twists I have ever experienced in a video game
Oh
ever,
boy. Okay.
in my opinion. So yeah. So there was no, like, crazy plot twist at the end of this one that would, like, turned everything on its head. It was just like, you went through the investigation for the last chapter and solved the mystery for the last chapter, and it all, like, it all made sense, right? There was nothing that, like, turned it completely on its head as, like, wait, that came out of nowhere. It's like,
Yeah.
no, if you put the pieces together, this made sense. And yeah, that, like, I enjoyed the final chapter much more in this game than I ever did in any of the Danganronpa games. So I think the overarching plot is better. I think, as I said, overall, I like Danganronpa better. The end of this does sequel bait a little bit. Like, they resolve the story that is going on in this game, but it's like there are other places in the world that like you could go, because again,
Sure.
the game is Master Detective Archives Raincode, so I could see they make a Master Detective Archives different subtitle,
Yeah, right.
something else,
Right.
So they sequel bait a little bit at the end, where there could be a possible like sequel, not exactly sequel, but like different game in the series in a different location with like a different cast of characters and a different story. And I would like to see that. Like the one thing I'll say about these games, both Danganronpa and this one, is like there's very unique. There is like very few other games that do anything like this. I guess there's Phoenix Wright, which is like it's kind of a similar thing where like in the gameplay you get to the trial and you have to, you know, I haven't really played any of those games. I've seen them a little bit, but you have to like find contradictions and stuff like that.
Yep.
So the gameplay's a little bit similar, but it's different, you know. You know, these games are, I don't know, the art style, like they just have a style, and all of the cases in these are also murders. I don't know if that's the case in Phoenix Wright, 'cause I haven't played enough, but
Right.
they tend to do more like wild and crazy stuff in Danganronpa, I feel like. And they also have like a bit of a dark and morbid sense of humor sometimes. Like it was Monokuma in Danganronpa, and then in this game there's Shinigami, who is the like death god that the main character is attached to.
Mm.
Um, and while I will tell you that, you know, we don't really like the amnesia trope very much, like it was explained in the end and like did make sense why they had to give the character amnesia,
Nope. Don't like it.
but yeah, it is still annoying.
It's writer's easy clap for trying to unravel the story. They're like, oh well, the characters remember it. Like, oh, okay. Haven't used that one in 2 days. It's too easy. It's just too easy.
Yeah. So overall, I enjoyed the game. Um, yeah, scratch the same itch as Danganronpa. As I said, the games are just unique. You don't really get anything like it other than those games. So they're fun to play every so often. Um, I was thinking about like, did I actually like that game better than FF16? And my gut reaction was yes, I liked Raincode better than FF16.
Mm.
Um, I don't know what I would give Raincode. It's kind of hard. I don't know. Like, I'm like waffling between 7 and 8, so I guess like 7.5 is probably fair.
I mean, that's appropriate.
Yeah, I'm like waffling between a 7 and 8, and I'm like, yeah.
That's appropriate. That's appropriate.
I don't think it's quite good enough to be a 7, but then I like it. I think I like it better than F16, which I gave a 7, and I think it's. I guess I could say it's a 7 as well, but just slightly better. But you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll say 7.5.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm trying to think like if I had to do like the 10-point scale and give it a 7 or an 8. That's actually hard. I'm like really well. There's parts of it where I want to say 7, but then like I really like the end was good. I really liked the ending, so kind of had a good like final impression, right? Um, I think overall with some of the technical issues, I probably have to go with a 7 instead
Okay.
of an 8. But it's kind of a high, like it's a high 7,
Got it. I
or
mean,
a low 8,
that's
right?
fair.
Like
That's fair. Okay.
so, yeah.
Got it.
Fun game if you're into those type of games. It's not for everybody for sure, but you know, if you've played Danganronpa and you like Danganronpa or want like a sort of interesting, quirky mystery game, I think it'll be up your alley.
Sounds good. Okay. So let's talk about Diablo then.
Yeah, let's talk about Diablo.
So let's talk about. I guess let's talk about some of the changes in the patch notes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to find the part where they talk about armor.
At the bottom.
Yep. And I'm trying to scroll through it here. Balance updates. Where's the... Was it a global armor change?
Not global, but the percent armor affix on
Oh my
gear,
god, yeah.
which is something that is a very powerful affix because armor overall is very powerful for defense. It went from like 10% to 7%, so it was like 30% reduction in the percent armor affix on gear. That's the top roll, like.
Yeah.
But overall, like the roll went down like 30%.
Yeah. I'm just looking through. Definitely, like, some interesting changes here.
And then vulnerable damage went down 40%. These were all item affix changes.
Reduced 40%, yeah.
When those affix roll on items, they were just reduced by a certain percentage, and crit damage went down like 17%. But then there were certain, like the inherent crit damage on like crossbow. Vulnerable. The inherent crit damage on like I think swords, one-handed swords, like went down like 50% or something like that. And same thing with like vulnerable on inherent on crossbows, I think it is, for rogue went down like 50 or 60%.
Jesus
I don't remember.
Christ.
It's just like a lot.
Yeah, there were a lot of reductions there. Interesting. Yeah, there's like tons of reductions in here. Cooldown reduction, reduced by 30%.
Oh, and cooldown reduction, which I think is the one people were pissed off the most about, because you reduce cooldown reduction and we just have to wait longer before we get to press our buttons, and people don't like that.
Yeah, of course you don't like that. You're like,
I want to press my I want to press my buttons.
I want to do stuff, not have to sit there running around with my hands in my pocket playing pocket pool, waiting for this thing to come back. Yeah, because I'm looking at some of these imbuement skill cooldown reduction reduced by 30%. Trap skill cooldown reduction reduced by 30%. Like critical strike damage reduced by 17%. Lightning critical strike damage, vulnerable damage reduced by 40%. Good God. Vulnerable damage inherent on crossbows reduced by 65%.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said 60. Okay, it's 65.
Critical strike damage inherent on swords reduced by 50%. Damage to crowd-controlled enemies decreased by 30%. Damage to frozen enemies increased by 20%. Oh my god, an increase! How exciting! And then there's actually some other increases, physical damage, blah blah blah. There's like a huge list of things that got increases.
Yeah, they buffed basically everything in the additive bucket, but they nerfed everything in the multiplicative buckets,
which sucks.
Which sucks, like, because those additive buckets, once you get a lot of it, like, at first it'll help you, but once you're in the end game and you have a bunch of those, if you have, like, for me, I'm playing, like, a fire build,
right?
Like, my Firewall Sork, right? I have, like, 300 or 400% fire damage already, so if I get another 30% fire damage, that really doesn't add very much, because I already have 400%.
No, it's, like, yeah. It's not as exciting. It's that... Yeah. It just sounds linear. It just sounds very linear. Yeah. It's not really logarithmic. It's just linear. But what you want is this one.
Yeah.
You want the other one. And they reduced all this one, and they're like, okay, we're gonna make this one better. Which everyone's probably like, okay, thanks.
And the problem, like, they didn't solve the problem at all, by the way. And I saw this, like, an argument made about this, which is like, they've actually made, like, they made the stats worse. But that actually makes the stats more desirable. Like, you're gonna need more of them on items because they're still the best stats. They didn't balance it out so that, like, you want to stack the other things. No, I still want vulnerable and crit and main stat and
like
vulnerable and crit.
You want
and main
vulnerable
stat.
crit, yeah.
Now I just need more of it. because you
Yeah,
nerfed the
because you
amount
nerfed it.
that I get.
You nerfed it.
So
So
they actually, in a way, kind of made the problem worse
yeah, they
by
did. No, they did.
nerfing it.
Yeah, the
So
first thing people are going to do is just go, okay, well, since I have, let's just use a percentage. Well, since I have, let's just take the vulnerable one on in general. My vulnerable went down 40%. I guess I'm going to have to make up for it. So I need to stack it
more. I
more.
just need to stack more vulnerable.
So I just have to
like,
restack it again and get it on
yeah.
more items. And like, ugh. I I think somebody in the design team, the whole design team, was thinking that was going to help, and they're going to come back and realize it's worse. They're going to come back and realize it.
So there's a part 2 to this story, and it's that they had a dev stream yesterday, a campfire chat to respond to the changes.
Yeah.
And basically what they said is they realized that especially vulnerable is a problem because it's a multiplicative damage bucket. And this was like the first of a set of changes they are going to make to like bring vulnerable back in line with everything else. But unfortunately, like they should have just waited to change it until they had all of those changes ready to go.
Yeah.
Nerfing at 40% right now doesn't do anything, and it just like pisses people off. So
Right.
I'm not sure why they did like part 1 of however many parts they're going to do of the changes. This was not the way to do it.
You'd rather for
I
this
get your
one
thought process. They know what the problem is. They know vulnerable is way too powerful, and that it's multiplicative, and like that's a problem. Like that's a problem. They know what the problem is, but again, if this fix is gonna take a longer time, just wait to implement the fix until you have everything sorted out and you can fix everything instead of just like, nope, we'll just nerf vulnerable damage by 40%. It's like, no, we still need to, like, you didn't fix the problem, you just made us weaker because everyone is still gonna stack that shit.
Yeah,
like,
we're just weaker, we just have to stack more of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, okay, I just need more of it, I guess. Yeah, they definitely should have rolled it out together as opposed to small
piecemeal
pieces. It's like, here's one, you're gonna hate this, but don't worry, we'll get the other soon, but you're gonna hate this. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, okay, basically, let's just say that we had a pretty serious nerf here in the multiplicative bucket.
They basically nerfed everything, like the most popular stats on gear, the stats that literally everyone was stacking on gear in the end game, like past level 50, or like once you start optimizing your gear. And the top 3 are crit, vulnerable, and cooldown reduction.
Mm-hmm.
And again, nerfing those by whatever percentage that they nerf them by is not going to change that. People are just going to still stack those things. Like they did not fix the problem with those nerfs. Like people do not want fire damage against healthy enemies on a Tuesday on their items.
Yeah. Corpses range for auto-targeting corpses on mouse keyboard by 50%. Okay. I'm just looking at some of the other character changes and...
Yeah, and like there was some bug fixes. Like it's not like this patch was all bad.
No, there were bug fixes. There
were a bunch of lot of bug fixes actually.
Yeah, there are tons
some of which were really good. They finally fixed the bug with Incinerate, which I was hoping was a bug, which finally confirmed was a bug, where when you start casting Incinerate, which is a channel skill that takes 25 mana a second or maybe 30 mana a second, I don't remember, where when you started casting it, it would cost 30 mana off the top and then start channeling. They finally fixed that bug, so it doesn't just take 30 mana from you every time you start casting it. It just like takes the channel cost. So thank God they fixed that bug. Like, I saw some posts on Reddit that like Incinerate may actually be decent now when it was like really terrible before, so I don't really know what they did to fix it, but maybe it's viable now, I'm not sure. I don't really want to change my build to test it, but yeah, Sork is in a really bad place right now. They nerfed the most power. It doesn't really affect my build, but they nerfed the most powerful passive on the Sork tree by like more than 50%, I think.
Interesting.
Which was a passive, even though it's a fire passive, it was being used in every build. So
Okay.
Yeah. So Sork is in a bad place right now. Sork's survivability is in a bad place. And again, they talked about it on the campfire chat. They know Sork sucks right now, and they said
Yeah,
they're
we know.
gonna have a patch in like a couple of weeks. It sounds like it'll be not next week, but early of the week after that.
Yep.
Where they're gonna be making some more changes. Sork and Barb specifically, they're gonna be, giving some love to. So
Yeah, Barb is very hard to level with. That's the one problem.
I don't think that's gonna change. I don't think that's gonna
Barb is
change.
very hard to level with.
Barb is gonna suck. Barb and Druid are just gonna suck leveling for whatever.
As opposed to
Yeah.
like some of the other classes, which are just more, we'll say, naturally ranged and can avoid getting.
Sork is actually still good, like leveling. It's just like
good
end
leveling.
game. It's end game where Sork is really struggling right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about the season for a little bit.
Sure.
So, because we'll continue to discuss the current state of quality of life and so on.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've partied up during the season with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Not being able to just teleport to you is incredibly frustrating. Like
Yeah,
at any point in time.
having to go to town first, and then click on the portal to teleport and go through 2 loading screens. Like,
not having the seasonal crafting bench in every town is incredibly frustrating.
It's stupid.
In fact,
understand.
it is a really poor oversight.
Design decision
Huge,
or oversight. Yeah.
Huge oversight. Poor design to not have the bench in every single location. And I hope they learn from this for the next seasons if they do this again.
Or that they patch it in the current season and
Yeah.
put the bench. Because I think there is one like around every main city, but the only one that's actually in the city is Kyovashad.
Yeah.
The other ones are like outside the city.
Just
They're
put them in the
outside
cities
city somewhere.
Just put them in the cities. Not having those seasonal hearts, caged hearts, whatever, that go in your inventory, not go to like a separate place.
Yeah,
huge oversight.
They should have added a separate tab for the hearts.
Huge oversight. It is a massive problem when you start grinding those. Either you're constantly going back to the one town you can, break those down, salvage them, or you're putting them in your stash. But you're probably salvaging early on because you're not going to use them early on. Really, you're going to save those probably. You're going to start really collecting those when you get to the end game. But like, why are these not on a separate tab? Why are the gems not on a separate tab yet? This stuff is like really frustrating because I'm constantly feeling like inventory's full again. Gotta go back. Guess I gotta go back to the stash.
Again, these are things that they've talked about that are all in the pipeline. They're saying they're going to add gems to the material. They're going to take them out of inventory entirely. They're going to add them to the materials list in season 2, but that's 3 months away.
So I'm like having to deal with this now, and it's very frustrating.
And then you added the Malignant hearts in this season, which just take up more.
It takes up more space. So I'm constantly like, okay, well, what the fuck? I'm trying to think of other things I think of. It's nice that the altars are carrying over. I still have to collect a bunch of altars, but it's not a big deal. The fact that it's account wide is great. I'll collect those pretty soon, actually, in my seasonal account. Whatever, no problem. Collecting them's easy when you have interactive maps online. And that's going to get me a lot of renown in some of the areas I haven't collected yet. So
and some stats.
Some needed stats.
Because you start with like, I think at level 1, with all the altars collected, I had about 75 to 80 in every single stat.
Yeah, I don't know what the beginning is for level 1. I'm sure it's
really low. It's like
really
under 10. I think it's under 10, or maybe it's around 10.
Yeah, so you get a huge buff. So like having those altars is really massive. I'm trying to think of some other comments that I had. The actual seasonal dungeons, the ones where you basically go through the dungeon as normal,
the Malignant tunnels,
and then you go and to the end you find the choice, which you have to use like the invoker thing on. And it's not just like all of them. There's only 2. And if you don't have the right thing, you can't do it. So having a group, it's not really a problem. Somebody in the group will have it. But when you're alone, you really early on aren't doing those a lot. You're gonna have to wait until you can salvage enough to get a bunch of those things to start unlocking those. So early on, those seasonal dungeons, those tunnels, you don't really get to the end and utilize it a lot. Yeah. I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to collect those invokers and like I have them now, but you don't early on. So that's a little bit annoying. It's a little annoying, a little bit. It's a little annoying that I can't just like click on it. I have to have the item. It's a little annoying. And then I'm trying to think of other things that I guess I have like the world tree, the wisdom tree, whatever it's called. I don't care. The tree has the waypoint still, so you can go to the waypoint.
The tree of whispers.
Yeah, the tree of whispers. Thank you. Tree of whispers still has a waypoint, which is great. You don't have to like go get that one again. That was nice. I'm glad that they gave us that one instead of all of them. Why do we have to unlock the waypoints again? Why?
The only reason I can think of the reason they reset it, and I just thought of it right now, is because there's a few waypoints that are tied to the strongholds, and obviously they're going to relock the strongholds and make you clear those again, which I don't have a problem with because I think the strongholds are pretty fun.
But you can, but just give the other waypoints. Like the strongholds can still be set to active.
I mean, I agree with you. I think they should just give us all the waypoints that we've unlocked. Nope. If you're gonna give us the whole map, I don't know why.
Yeah, exactly. Run around like why would you why wouldn't you just give us the rest of it? It doesn't make sense. Like I'm fine with the little shrines. You still have to collect them. Blah blah blah. Whatever. But it's just like I don't understand why the waypoints start unlocked. I don't want to go through the desert again. You know, I just don't want to ride through the desert. I don't want to have to ride to all these waypoints again. It feels like it's just unnecessary extra action. The waypoints should be account wide, and they'll be locked for strongholds. That's the only condition. You still have to do the stronghold again. That's fine. Okay, those are my big complaints so far playing the season. I've played a lot so far. I mean, I'm level 32. I'm not level 100 or whatever, but I've played a lot so far. I've played some of the story. Can't really say I'm enjoying the seasonal story so far. You follow Cormac, whatever his name is. Cormac, who cares? Whatever, Kyrie Irving. You follow Kyrie Irving around, and he's like trying to fix his mistake. And that's what you're doing. You're following him around, helping him collect certain materials so he can fix his mistake. He made a big error, and it has to do with Lilith. Lilith came to his town, and you've gone to this point, but he made a big error, and I won't go any further into that in case somebody is like really enthralled with the seasonal story so far. A hold on talking about anymore, but I mean, like, it's okay. I haven't felt like I've been, I guess, like, so bored and out of it that I just don't care. It's nice. It's a nice change of pace, I guess, from just running around trying to get renown again for me because of the waypoints and then doing the strongholds. But I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's like, it's very simple so far. There really isn't anything that's really stood out to me as like, oh, that's awesome. Even the tunnels, like the seasonal tunnels, I haven't really felt particularly strongly about that. I haven't felt particularly strongly about any of the seasonal content so far. Maybe that'll change.
I mean, some of the hearts seem like pretty cool and interesting, and like, you know, you can find a list of like all the hearts online, right?
Sure.
Some of them really seem really cool and interesting. Some of them are like the druid's hearts are dog shit, like they're terrible. But the necro ones are really cool, actually. There's a bunch of like this like auto corpse skill, like auto activating like abilities for the necro, where it's like, so those seem like pretty cool.
No. I'm not talking about the hearts. Like, those all, yeah, sure. I'm just talking
But
specifically about the seasonal stuff.
yeah, I mean
Outside that,
the story, like, I mean, the story is about on par with the rest of the Diablo story. It's nothing like super exciting, but
yeah,
it's fine. Other than like the end of the story in D4 was good, but most of it was pretty ho hum for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
And this falls in line with that,
yeah.
um, to me. I haven't done the Malignant tunnels very much, other than when I was like playing with you guys. I've kind of ignored them for
Yeah,
now. I've just been like, I've just been doing like side quests and dungeons and trying to get my renown to rank 3 in all the regions, which I now have, which I did finished last night.
yep.
So,
I have to get
um,
Lilith stuff, so it's going to take me a bit. But, like, it's not that bad. I'm just trying to reveal the map.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think, and this is like, you know, this like this seasonal content is like, it's fine. I'm glad that they like have a story, like there is a story for
Yep.
it, and they put some effort into like, adding a new character and some voice acting, and there's gonna be a new like boss with that like Varshan guy or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So there's gonna be a new boss, which is cool. It's not like this. They just like, there's this meme about there's a Diablo 3 season apparently where it was just like double goblins, and that was the season. So, you know, there's not gonna be anything like that. They're actually gonna
We've
like
doubled the goblins. It's like,
double goblins. Like, all
cool.
right, thanks.
Good stuff.
So there's not gonna be any seasons like that where I think every season will probably have like pretty like a short seasonal quest line, a battle pass with a bunch of cosmetics, the season journey, and like the season journey isn't that exciting. It's mostly just like things you would do for playing the game
Yeah,
for the most part, which is fine. I
that's
don't
fine.
care
Yeah.
about that. I don't need like specific. I feel like one of the objectives in the season journey should be like completing the seasonal quest, but okay, I guess it's not there. That feels a
Yeah.
little odd to me, but
It's
other than
mostly
that,
just like, are you
um,
running around? You should do a dungeon, and we'll give you a reward for it. It's like, okay, sure, why not? Do
I guess it's like
complete 10 cellars.
yeah, 10
Okay.
sellers,
Okay.
5 dungeons, 15 side quests, whatever.
Craft a jewel. Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
craft the
This,
craft the
this,
jewel.
okay.
Upgrade your potion. It's like, okay.
Like, yeah,
Um,
we do all this leveling up, so that's
yeah,
fine.
these
But
are all things we would do from like playing the game. So,
yeah,
um, those things were all fine. But yeah, I mean, I agree that this season is not like, it's not blowing my socks off, but it's more Diablo 4, and I think despite how much people like to complain about it, I think overall I like Diablo 4.
oh, I
It's
do too.
it's a fun game. Like, there's some issues with it, um, but it's a fun game. I like playing it. I'm playing Rogue. You're playing Necromancer. So, and I
I'm
played Sork in preseason, and
yeah.
despite Sork being the worst class in endgame, I still do like my Sork. Like, Sork is fun.
Yeah.
Um,
So what rogue build are you doing right now, by
I
the
am
way?
playing Penetrating Shot.
Okay. I'm doing Bone Spear, but I'm finding that, man, Corpse Tendrils is really good.
Yeah.
I did not expect Corpse Tendrils
Mm,
to have the range to pull,
yeah.
and it's really good. Outside of, like, it doesn't work on bosses, but that's understandable. But man, dropping a corpse explosion and then the tendrils,
Mhm.
and then immediately being able to bone spear afterwards is kind of a nice combo.
Yeah, I guess the tendrils like pulls everything together, and then you just bone spear them, and they
And
all
you bone
die.
spear the group, and it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And then I have blood mist to avoid getting killed,
Yeah, that's your get out of jail for. That's your get out of
but
jail for. Oh, I got CC'd.
I have
Blood
an
mist.
item right now that triggers corpse explosion when I blood mist
Oh,
over it.
you have that. Okay, you
I
have
have
that
that.
legendary. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Other than that, it's mostly just I have a couple Reaper skeletons that create corpses, and it's all about tendrils into explosion into bone spear. That's the three move combo, and it procs everything actually. I have critical. I think I have vulnerable in there. There's vulnerable in there. I'm triggering vulnerable, so I've got the whole suite of things going on. So it's good. It's a fun build. I'm really enjoying it. I'm glad I switched from trying to use minions and bone spear. That wasn't it. Corpse tendrils into explosion is it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having a great time right now.
That's good.
And bosses aren't just eating me alive because I don't have to stand in front of them to do damage now.
Yeah.
It's nice to be like, oh, I'm 15 feet from a boss and I can still hit it. As opposed to a barbarian where I'm like, oh, this boss is kicking my ass, but it's the only way I can hit it. The only way I can do anything is I gotta stand right in front of it. So, yeah, it's been good times. I'm enjoying it. Play some more today. I don't know. I'm obviously interested in completing the seasonal story, and then I have to go do some like running around touching Lilith statues.
Yep.
But outside of that, that'll get me to tier 3 renown, I think, everywhere. I think I'm almost to the point where I'm gonna get to tier 3 renown everywhere. And then it's just getting to 50, and then a new game starts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, trying to think like what else they. Cause yeah, the campfire chat yesterday, the dev stream was like pretty good overall. They did give a little bit of like, they're gonna have some corporate talk, and they give some hand wavy answers here and there, but for the most part, they admitted that the patch sucked and that people don't like being nerfed, and that they took some of the fun out of the game by nerfing literally everything that was good.
yeah,
Um, but they talked about a lot of changes that they have coming down the pipeline. Again, they addressed and they talked about vulnerable specifically, so they know what the problem is. It's just going to take them a little more time to fix it.
yep,
Because they want vulnerable to be a build option, not a requirement, and it is a
it
requirement
is a
right now
requirement.
in the end game. You don't if you do not do enough damage in the end game unless you use vulnerable. So, um, and that really pigeonholes certain classes like sorcerer, especially where they have very few sources of vulnerable, Frost Nova being the main one. So pretty much every sorcerer endgame build right now is you teleport in. Hopefully you have the unique teleport chest where when you teleport it pulls everything in and stuns them,
Mm-hmm.
and then you Frost Nova and then you do all your damage. Like
Yeah,
that's like every. And it doesn't matter what your damage skill is, whether it be Firewall or Ice Shards or whatever. I don't know, like Arclash. I think there's a Blizzard build. I don't remember, um, but that's like every endgame sorcerer build literally takes all 4 defensive skills and then like whatever their damage skill is, and then like maybe an ultimate or
yeah,
like maybe one other thing, right?
got it.
And that's like that is not good build diversity when
No,
like probably at least half the skills on the sorcerer tree are not being used at all. Like nobody uses the conjurations, Hydra, like uh the ice one, ice whatever it's called, and there's lightning spear, ice blades maybe, and then lightning spear. So yeah, build diversity on Sork is really bad right now
mm-hmm.
actually. So um I always talk about Sork because that's the class I know the most
Yeah, no,
about.
of course,
That's what I played in preseason.
of course.
But yeah, they acknowledged the issues with Barbarian and Sorcerer class balance wise. They talked about they've already done they did some XP buffs, but then in the last patch with all the nerfs, they did some XP nerfs as well. So that didn't offset completely the big XP buff they did to Nightmare Dungeons. But they did do XP nerfs in the last patch, like the nerf patch a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But they said they still like coming down the pipeline. I think they said in the next patch, which is going to be 1.1.1. That's the one that's coming in probably about a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
that they're gonna do more XP buffs for the 50 to 100, so they're gonna speed that up even more because they still think it's too slow. So that's good. They're gonna speed that up. They talked about they're gonna increase monster density in both Nightmare Dungeons and Helltide,
Okay.
which is good. That'll probably help with the XP, like the XP curve as well, to be honest, because you're just gonna be killing more monsters. And they are also vastly tuning down the difficulty of, and actually no, they already did this. They did this in a hotfix that came out last night. They're vastly turning down the difficulty of the high tier Nightmare Dungeons.
Okay.
They said that like the highest tier Nightmare Dungeon is tier 100, which makes the monsters level 154, and obviously the player max level is level 100.
Right.
And what they've done is basically in the higher tiers, they said they wanted what the previous tier 70 is what they wanted tier 100 to be like. So they basically reduced like the health and the damage on the higher tier like Nightmare Dungeons by like 60 to 80%
Oh,
or
Jesus.
something. So the higher tier Nightmare Dungeons got way easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, they talked about that. What else did they talk about? They talked about like gem changes coming down the pipeline. They talked about there are a lot of questions about like Uber uniques and how they basically don't. There's a question about Uber uniques, how they basically don't exist in the game because the drop rate is so minuscule. There's been like, I feel like confirmed at least like less than 10 found out of like every player in Diablo 4 ever
That's
in
ridiculous.
a month. Yeah, the drop rate is
That's
insanely low.
ridiculous.
So their answer to it was like they don't want them to be items that like you expect to find and that like you should expect to put in your build or that you need to have in your build for your build to work. They don't want that. But they also said that they think the drop rate right now is a little too low, so they're gonna find ways to either, I don't know, maybe a certain activity that drops them, maybe just increasing the drop rate. We don't know.
Yeah.
But so they talked about that. Talked about crowd control a little bit. They think crowd control is a little out of control, which most people are complaining about. Where like, especially in Nightmare Dungeons, when you get all these affixes going on, you can literally just get CC'd and get CC'd again and then CC'd again and you're dead.
Yeah.
So that's not very fun. So they're thinking about addressing that. So, I mean, basically, they talked about a lot of things in the dev stream. They answered a lot of questions, and overall, they addressed a lot of complaints. There was one that was kind of like there was a couple that I feel like they missed pretty hard on, and obviously they have some changes coming down the line with gems and stuff like that. But they're like, we know you want more stash space, so we're adding one more stash tab in the next patch, and it's like, really, one stash tab? Are you kidding me?
Why not just add like 10? Does it really matter? Like, what's the problem?
It seems like that's for some reason. It seems like the way they coded the game or the UI, the stash space. It seems like it's more difficult for them to add stash tabs than it should be.
Yeah, it shouldn't be hard. It
Yeah.
really shouldn't be hard to add more. It shouldn't. But
Yeah.
maybe they spaghetti coated it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. They talked about how legendary aspects are taking up a lot of inventory space, and they're trying to address that as well. There was an interesting suggestion to them, which they seemed to like, and I liked the suggestion as well. I actually thought about it myself, that like if you like extract a legendary aspect, why can't that just like go in the codex? And like, especially if you extract like an aspect that is already in the codex, but it's like a better roll on the aspect. If you like extract a max roll on the aspect, why can't that just go in the codex and I can just have that? Because it turns out that like in the end game, you just keep farming for the same aspects over and over again because, you know, like you want to have your legendary aspects on your character to make your build work, but you want to save like the best rolls for the best item. It's like it's weird. I don't
Yeah.
like that you just have to keep like finding the same aspect over and over again, and you know, oh, I found like a better set of pants, but oh no, I already put in a max disobedience roll on these pants that I have, and I don't have another one of those,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be like weaker. Like I don't know, I don't like that at all. I feel like once you find a powerful, like especially if it's like a maxed roll on like a particular aspect you want, when you extract it, you should be able to like use that as many times as you want
Yeah,
on
sure.
like
I mean, you found it,
whatever.
yeah.
I don't like the extracted aspects being a one-time consumable. I think that's just silly.
Because then
Like,
people are just gonna bank it. They're just gonna be like, okay, I'm just gonna put it in here and save it for a while.
because yeah, on my Sork, I have like my aspect inventory is basically just full of aspects that are just like different rolls on the same aspects because I
Right.
know what aspects I want to use on my character, and it's just like, well, if I find an upgrade, I have a backup,
Yeah.
right? Um, so yeah, so they said they're looking at ways to improve that system,
Yeah.
basically.
I mean, if you find
So
the best one, you should just, to avoid that issue, you should just have them keep it.
yeah.
I mean, you found it,
Um,
so you
so
rolled
yeah,
it.
the one question that was asked that I feel like was a big L in the dev stream, somebody asked about, so they increased the time to leave dungeon, like the leave dungeon button, from 3 to 5 seconds in
Yeah.
the patch.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
And their answer was just like, it was gobbledygook. It was just like, well, we'll look at that. We don't know. It's a small change, blah blah blah. But we put the reset dungeon back in, but you have to be outside the dungeon to do that. So blah blah blah. Like it was a non-answer. It
Yeah.
was just like, and I heard some interesting theories from streamers about like, well, maybe they're gonna add like portal cosmetics, and they need that to take longer so you can see your portal cosmetic, or maybe
Oh.
or maybe it's just like, yeah, it's just like a metrics thing where they want to see like more playtime in the game, so if they force silly things to take longer, then you're going to spend more time in the game.
No,
So
that isn't it.
like,
The cosmetic makes more sense actually. Your portal looks different makes a lot more sense actually.
yeah,
Because then the player, if it's a 3 second portal compared to 5 second, you feel worse obviously. You wouldn't necessarily. But like if your portal lasts longer, in general, you're gonna feel like, oh, like I bought this portal cosmetic for $2, so I can see my very cool like fireworks portal. That actually makes sense. The playtime one be like increasing playtime. No, I don't think that's a thing. That's not a thing. I don't think you would actually do that. That even with the metrics being like, oh look, our playtime increased like 10%. Like I don't think that's realistic compared to being able to sell a cosmetic for your portal. That actually makes a ton of sense. Um, I
so yeah,
mean,
it seems like the devs generally, it's still Blizzard, but it seems like these devs generally like, they care about what the community is saying. They're trying to make the game better. It's just gonna take some time. I will be interested to see what this game looks like in like a year, right?
yeah, in it,
See, yeah, like
yeah,
how many improvements like have been made to the game in the year, because some of these things seem like they're gonna be like pretty long-term changes. They're gonna take quite a while for them to implement, but
I think they're just gonna wait for each season to make some changes. So like, it's gonna take longer than probably you would think because they're like, oh well, we can like bundle these changes with the season, or like it makes more sense to bundle them with the season release. I mean, obviously they're doing patches outside of the season, of course, but
yeah,
I mean, certain things they're probably just gonna wait on because they're like, oh well, this makes more sense to just bundle here.
yeah.
But yeah, so like I think
I
I mean
I
like I still see progression. Like they're still making fixes. There's still like there's going to be balance changes. They're going to do that, good or bad. But like the more fixes, and potential quality of life improvements that we see, that's where things are you're gonna notice the actual effect here. Like, and you're probably gonna notice more cosmetics. That's the other thing you'll notice.
I mean, yeah.
You'll notice your portals can shoot fireworks now, and or your portal is like a, I don't know, some other like Blizzard themed portal,
Yeah.
like freaking a Zergling jumps out of it. Who knows? I mean, like they're gonna do that. Like that makes sense. You increase
Yeah.
the time for the portal because you want people to see it longer. Um. Anyway, but yeah, I mean Diablo's fun. I'm excited. I'm enjoying the new season. Like just playing through a new character.
Yeah.
The build's fun. Even just playing on my own, I'm having a good time. Just trying to get to 50, and then go from there. Actually using a build that I found online has been fun. So
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know. I don't have much else to say about Diablo. Actually, I'm looking forward to playing more.
Yeah. No, I think I covered everything I want to cover. Again, it seems like the game is going to be moving in the right direction. They said they weren't ever going to do a patch like they did this week again. So
I hope not.
hopefully, I mean, I'm sure there will be nerfs here and there, but they said basically if there's going to be nerfs again, they will also pair it with buffs. I think that's what felt so bad about this patch is it was basically just nerfs across the board. Other than like some of the bug fixes, there was basically nothing good in this patch. It was just like all nerf. It was as far as the balance went, it was literally all nerf. It was just nothing but
It
nerfs.
wasn't paired with a substantial buff. We got a substantial nerf, and that's all we
Yeah,
saw. That's the problem. You want to pair a substantial nerf with a substantial buff so that
like okay,
it's
you think
together.
these builds are like too overpowered, or like these stats are too overpowered. So like nerf those and like okay, yeah, they buffed. As I said, they buffed up all those like additive stats, but like not very much and not enough for it to matter, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, it's
um,
not enough to make a difference compared
yeah,
to what
and they
actually is working.
they said that they're like, well, if we do nerfs, they will pair it with substantial buffs, and they will also basically they're not unless it is caused by a bug. They will let some builds be overpowered until they find like a suitable alternative where they
Yeah.
can like nerf that and then bring something else up, or like just provide an alternative to the overpowered build,
Yeah,
right?
that makes
So
sense. Otherwise, you're gonna get frustration, which is what you got.
yeah, which is what you got because you again they probably nerf like 95+% of endgame builds, like if not even more than that,
Because they're all using
again,
vulnerable. Because
because they're all using
they're all
vulnerable
using
and crit,
vulnerable.
like that's
Yeah,
and cooldown reduction, like
yeah,
that's
of
what you
course.
stack in the end game. To have a successful end game build, that's what you stack.
Yeah.
So
Again, that makes sense. Anyway, okay. Well, I think we can. I think we can close things down.